So welcome back. We are here with Chris Black, Professor Black.
Hello.
In fact, maybe the first question should be, how should we properly address you?
Chris.
Chris.
Especially if we're in the high spirits realm. That's all I've ever gone by in the high spirits realm is it's Chris. What's it?
Now, Chris, prior to High Spirits becoming a band, what were your musical influences? What have you done musically prior to forming this
Prior
band?
to High Spirits, quite a lot actually. High Spirits is a relatively new, compared to the other projects I've had, it's a relatively new one. I guess starting from the beginning, there was a band called Super Christ that was active from approximately 98 through, I think, 2013, so there's some overlap there. That was very kind of Motorhead, Venom, you know, early English metal influenced band. I'm active in a more power metal or traditional metal band called Pharaoh. I'm a drummer in Pharaoh. It's a very slow-moving band. I guess we've been a band since about the same time, '97 or so. Still working slowly on new albums when we can. What else? Dawnbringer actually was my oldest project. No longer active, but was active from '96 through 2016. So yeah, I had already kind of established a lot of outlets for my songwriting and for all the other things that go along with being in a band before High Spirits.
So with all this experience, how did High Spirits come into your picture?
It was pretty spontaneous. I mean, you could say it was almost accidental.
Just like everything.
Right. I guess I just came to feel that I had certain things to express as a songwriter, or maybe not to express, but certain things to explore, maybe experiment with as a songwriter that would not have worked within my other projects. But that almost makes it sound more premeditated than it really was. I mean, it really was just kind of me picking up the guitar and, you could say, logging in under a different username, just kind of seeing where it would go, and you know, not having any boundaries, not having any preconceptions or prejudices that would come with, okay, I'm trying to write a Super Christ song, I'm trying to write a Pharaoh song. Now it was just like, let's just pick up the guitar and see where it takes me, and that's where it took me.
Did you have anything in mind prior to picking up the guitar?
I don't think so. You know, it's hard to kind of recreate the moment. It was very spontaneous in many ways. So no, it was. You know, again, it was just kind of a moment of inspiration and taking a chance. Really.
So where did it go?
Well, it went it rather directly went to a demo. There was no band. There was no band. The only function of High Spirits at the beginning was me writing songs and making demo recordings by myself on the computer, which is funny because one of the reactions that was very common early on was, oh, the recording sounds so authentic. It's like, well, no, that's actually a drum machine and a guitar plugged straight into the computer. So there's nothing very vintage about that technique, other than maybe not going back and fixing as many mistakes as I could have. But yeah, I think the first tracks were completed around February of 2009, and I think then once there were another 2 tracks, we did a 4-song demo, which was Torture Night After Night, Wanted Dead, and Wings of Fire, and Don't Look Down, which is kind of a combined 2-for-1 song. That was demo number 1, and I just kept writing. I mean, anybody who knew me and who I was hanging out with during that summer, especially of 2009, could tell you I was completely consumed with all these new songs that I was working on. I was even more antisocial than I usually am, and just, you know, I'm going to stay in and work on my song tonight. You know, I'll catch you next time. And by, I think, July, there was a second demo, which was the songs Never Going Back, Midnight Lady, Calling Out to You, and High Spirits.
And you can get both demos on this release. You want to explain what that is?
Yep. Soon after the demos were complete, I decided I wanted to release them it was enough songs for an album. So actually, well, it wasn't quite enough songs for an album, so we added I Need to Know and Set Me Free, and filled it out essentially as a album-length demo compilation. And this was our first release, and it's still, we still keep it in print today on CD and vinyl. So it's sold quite well for what it is.
Now, one thing which a lot of people don't realize is that you are a one-man operation. Can you explain how that works?
On record, that's true. On record, it's always been me playing all the instruments. There's a variety of reasons for that, but live, it's always been the normal 5-piece band setup where I'm just the singer. We have 2 guitar players and a bass player and a drummer. Occasionally, the bass player's not been able to do a tour, and I've played bass and sang, and we've been a 4-piece band, but that's not normal. The normal configuration is the 5-piece band.
Now, even though you didn't know where it was going to go when you started High Spirits, how would you describe what came out musically?
It was, I don't know. That's a challenging question because I wasn't conscious of specific influences or specific inspirations being poured in. I really was just kind of letting it take me where I wanted to go. So once the first demo was written and was complete, that kind of became the inspiration for the second demo, and then the totality of that again, it kind of it snowballed around itself, I guess you could say.
How did people respond to these demos?
Very positively.
Mm-hmm.
It was exactly the right time for that kind of band. I think people were very much in the mood for High Spirits. Social media was just becoming a thing, so that was when it was new and novel to be able to throw a track on MySpace and reach thousands, if you were lucky, reach thousands of people in all corners of the world. That was exciting to me, and likewise I think that was exciting to that audience at that time too, that there was this new mechanism for discovering bands. And it was free. It was completely free. There was no making and mailing of tapes. There was no send back my stamps. It was all completely in the box. As they say, it was all zeros and ones, which again was very new and I think very exciting and a very positive thing for the band.
Now, obviously, this really good response to the demos kept you going. So
Yeah.
what happened next?
Well, what happened? The next significant thing to happen was that I was persuaded to put a live band together and try playing these songs live. At the beginning I had no concept of this being a live band, but there were 2 promoters in Chicago who I've always liked working with, and they were bringing the band Enforcer from Sweden. They were bringing them over, and it was going to be the first show of Enforcer's first U.S. tour. So that was a special thing already, and they were able to convince me to give it a try. I talked to my one guitar player friend, and he said, "Yeah, sure, I'll do it if you're looking for somebody, I'll do it." And sure enough, another guitar player and the drummer from Superchrist at the time. We got together and learned the songs and gave it a try. So,
and how did it go? How did these songs sound on stage?
Some sounded better than others. Some were more difficult than others. Overall, it seemed to go over pretty well. I mean, the phone kept ringing, to do more shows at that point, and the lineup was working well. We added a bass player. That first show, we were a 4-piece band with me playing bass. But we added a bass player, and I think did another show a few months later, and then a few months later than that, we went on tour for the first time, actually.
And then the record. Not even demos, the record. You want to show the album and kind of give me...
the record. Yeah, we went on tour in 2010, and then again in 2011, kind of in the midst of working on Another Night, which was a very successful album. Continues to be a very successful album. I mean, it's also been kept in print. I think the LP version's been pressed 6 or 7 times on all kinds of all kinds of different colors now. It's really had a lot of staying power. That was the album that really got people's attention in Europe. That was High Roller Records had done a pressing of the Demos album actually, but it wasn't until Another Night, I think, that people really started to notice the band.
How did that vary from the Demos?
Well, there's fewer mistakes. there's plenty of mistakes on both. With Another Night, we knew it was a studio album and was going to be marketed as such. So yes, you go back and fix the glitches then. But it was a fairly extended recording process. Like, we did the drums at Engine Studios, which I don't know if you know, it's gone now, unfortunately, but that's a nice high-end studio here in Chicago. Did the drums there for a couple days, then I would go home and do the guitars myself, back to the studio and do the vocals. So it definitely wasn't the longest production cycle that I've been part of, but it was relatively extended. We were doing shows in the midst of that. But once it finally came out, I think in August of 2011, it was really a smash, and I was honestly a bit surprised because I thought that would be one of those demos were better band. Like, oh, the demos were great, but the full lengths, they sold out right away. They sold out as soon as possible, and I even remember at some points during the recording, because again, it was an extended process. I had plenty of time to overthink things, and just thinking, I don't know. I mean, at one point I was thinking about releasing it as singles, just instead of these 9 songs, like get rid of one song and then do four singles more gradually. It's like I just didn't. I didn't obviously have the hindsight that I have now to see, what it was. And again, I think the timing was in our favor. I think people were in the mood for an album like that.
How much touring was done for that record?
For that, between that and the next album, I guess we probably did 30 shows, which is not a lot. Even for us, it's not a lot. We definitely picked up the pace after the following album. Became more of a touring commodity.
So how did things go from the first actual record to the second? You want to show the second album?
Sure.
and then get into that?
Sure. By this point,
yep.
This is You Are Here. This came out in April of 2014. By this point, we had established ourselves pretty well as a live band. Like I said, the majority of our touring picked up kind of after that release. It was not as well received as the debut, for a variety of reasons. It could be that it's just not as strong of an album. Obviously, it was 3 years later. People's tastes move on and evolve and change rather quickly. I mean, that's one of the downsides of this, of everything being in the box and everything being so accessible online, is that people jump from one thing to the next very quickly, in some cases. There was also, because the debut had been such an unexpected success, that then creates a lot of pressure for the follow-up record to perform as well or perform better. Like, there's always this this mentality that the next thing has to be bigger than the thing that was before it. You always have to be growing, better, bigger, faster, whatever it is.
But that does not always work.
No, it doesn't always work, and it especially doesn't work when you turn that pressure on yourself, which I certainly did. I mean, I was trying to shut that out as much as I could, but there was just no way. I mean, we'd made money. The album had made money. I got, You Are Here was released. We had a separate label in the U.S. at that time, and a separate recording budget and everything. So there was pressure from a few different directions for that album. And like I said, it didn't seem to make the same splash that the debut did. On the upside, that is when we started touring more heavily. I think in support of You Are Here, we probably did more like something like 50 or 60 shows. For a lot of bands, that's nothing. There's a lot of bands that do 150, 200 shows in a normal year. I've never been interested in that. just as interested, if not more, in making records. You can reach a lot more people that way, for one thing.
Now, at what point did High Spirits become a dominant project for you?
Right around that point. Superchrist was my other touring band, and we played our last show in 2013, so that would have been before the release of You Are Here. It wasn't a problem for me doing both. The reasons for Superchrist breaking up are independent of, you know, High Spirits kind of rising in profile. All other things being equal, it wouldn't have been difficult to continue doing both. But Pharaoh's never been a touring band. We've done 4 shows in our entire 20 years, you know, and we're never going to be a touring band. So, yeah, for me it wasn't, it seemed like a very natural progression for High Spirits to kind of become more of a priority.
And then came more demos, with
More
2013 demos.
Yep. Well, actually we missed one because, I don't know if you want to edit this, but
Yep.
this actually came out in 2013, before You Are Here. So we, this comes chronologically after Another Night. This was originally a vinyl EP released to support our second trip to Europe. It was a way to have something special, something exclusive and special to sell at the merchandise stand, and also a way to offset some of the expenses, because you do make good money as a performing artist in Europe. The trick is getting there, which is of course very expensive.
And how did you manage that trick?
We've had incredible support from High Roller, from our record company. It's really been, you know, knowing people in other bands, other touring bands, and, you know, everybody who wants to finds a way to make it work. High Roller has always made it very easy for us to make it work.
What is it that European crowds find attractive about High Spirits?
I think the interaction. I think the, you know, the opportunities for participation. You know, a lot of people know the words. I think we're a band that is, I think our appeal is pretty wide. I've done entire shows with a guy in front of me in a Satanic War Master shirt, like headbanging like crazy and with a huge smile on his face. I've done shows with you know, a girl with a helicopters shirt on, or you know, we get all, what I'm trying to say is we get all types at our shows, and I think that's part of the appeal for the crowd too. I think the crowd likes being at a place where, you know, maybe it's not all the same people you saw at the you know, at the Marduk gig the week before, or at the Anvil gig the week before that, where you kind of know approximately who you can expect to see. I think we have a more you know, diverse might be kind of a cliche term for it, but I think that does describe our crowd.
Now, also I noticed that you have been performing at some of the British fests that feature a lot of the new wave of British heavy metal bands, and you seem to fit in perfectly. How do you feel being part of that?
We have fit in well. Yeah, and it is. I kind of have mixed feelings when I see a flyer and it's High Spirits and Trespass, or, you know, High Spirits and Blitzkrieg, you know, right next to each other on the flyer. I mean,
and obviously the promoters had to hear something as well in order to invite you.
I think so, and I think it's the songwriting and you know, the melodic vocal and the guitar harmonies. I mean, it's kind of easy to see the musical similarities. I think there, but you know, I do have mixed feelings. I think being on the same stage as some of those bands is just, it's a huge honor, but it's still, I guess in a way it doesn't seem real still, and probably never will, that that's also us up there, that we've been kind of welcomed into that realm. It's very humbling.
And then the new album, not new anymore, but the last one.
Relatively new.
Relatively new.
We still consider it new. Motivator.
Motivator.
Yeah.
Why the title Motivator?
I'm not sure. I'm trying to remember. I'm not sure, but I got it very early on. Very early on. I began writing that album right after right after I finished writing the previous one, which was You Are Here. You Are Here, again, came out in April of 2014, and I think by June of 2014 I had 3 of the songs that ended up on Motivator. And I knew right away that it was going to be called Motivator. Maybe I was thinking of Motorhead, maybe because they have that album Motorizer.
True.
Maybe
yeah.
I was thinking, why didn't they call it Motivator? Probably because you can't put the umlaut in the right spot. Actually, that's probably why. But whatever the case, I had the title in my head, and I had the album cover with the airplane. I had a very, very clear vision of what this album was going to the whole feel and like everything. Like I said, the airplane and the title. I was very focused on that album.
Now you've mentioned that maybe the reception for the previous album wasn't as good. How did people react to Motivator?
People seem to like Motivator. Mm-hmm. It hasn't sold as well as Another Night, but it hasn't had as long on the market. You can't really compare them. But people responded very well. It takes a little bit of time. We've found it takes a little bit of time to kind of integrate songs into the live show and have it not feel like there's kind of a weird, like, oh, now they have to play songs off the new album, you know. But now maybe just because the album isn't strictly speaking a new album, it's just the newest one. Songs like oh, they're not on there, but songs like Thank You and This Is the Night, I mean, Flying High, those have really become kind of staples of the live set. You know, even if it took a couple tours, you know, they feel just as natural to us as Torture or Full Power or those songs.
Now, when you think back about the progression from the first demos to Motivator, what do you see?
Not much has changed. The basic process is the same. I mean, it's still me alone with headphones at the computer with a guitar in my lap. I know that's kind of like the antithesis of the rock and roll image of, like, you know, drinking beers in the garage. Or
you're not petting gargoyles?
No. Maybe I should. But you know, there's no getting around that. That's what it is, and that process. I think that process impacts the songs and makes the songs turn out to be a certain way. I think to do it any other way would no longer be High Spirits. So I've been very reluctant to kind of tamper with the process. I mean, the difference compared to the demos, you know, like I've been saying, like with the demos, I just kept going out, you know. If something's a little out of tune, or like maybe my voice isn't so great, I mean, I'm a better singer nowadays. My voice could only do so much on the demos, but you know, if anything, I'm pickier. The material is more refined, you know, with fewer glitches along the way. But
glitches are fine.
yeah, sometimes, you know.
Yeah.
Sometimes you have a lucky accident, but sometimes it's better not to let anybody else hear it.
Now, also, when I look at the album covers, I can't not notice a Chicago accent in all of them. I mean, you want to kind of re-examine that?
You say you do notice a Chicago?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah, sure, yeah.
Is that conscientious? And then I'm trying to think about the Motivator. Mm-hmm. It's not obvious, but then I think of O'Hare, which is the busiest airport, mm-hmm. and it kind of falls in place. Care to comment on any of that?
Well, sure. This, I mean, that's a no-brainer. I mean, that's
you got it.
But and I didn't think about it until a few years later. There's an interesting twist, though, that you have to be on the lake to get this picture. Mm-hmm. This is a tourist's eye picture of Chicago. Sure. This is kind of like it's gleaming in the distance, you know. Whereas this, now you're in. Now you're deep
this
within.
Is something I see when I'm on the L train.
Yeah, exactly. This is actually closer to the London mm-hmm. system. I think that was actually kind of the model that the artist worked from for this. But same exact idea. You know, it's a subway map, and you know, whereas here you're kind of gazing.
Very obvious.
Gazing from a distance. Here you're deep inside. Mm-hmm. You're embedded, and you know, I think this is maybe a more introverted High Spirits album, or more kind of isolated version.
And
of
then the
Spirits.
motivator. I mean, I'm someone who lives near O'Hare, so
me too.
it's unavoidable.
Right, right. This was actually inspired by all the touring we did do in 2014 and 2015. In 2015, we did a tour where I think we were on an airplane every other day for 2 weeks, something crazy like this.
That rubs
we
off.
were up and down, up and down, up and down, because flying within Europe is, once you're there, getting there, of course, is expensive, like we said, but once you're there, you can kind of hop around, depending what you're willing to tolerate for service, you can hop around fairly cheaply. So we found on one particular tour that it was, you know, it's like, hey guys, we could jump over to Greece, jump on another plane the next day and be back in Germany. And we had a hard time resisting those possibilities, so we were just fly, 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 fly. So the airplane being on the album cover and the song "Flying High," the lead-off track on this, were kind of autobiographical. I mean, I wouldn't say this is a concept album, Motivator, but there are a lot of stories in here, kind of about our experience as a band and kind of the questions you find yourself asking in certain band situations, like how far are we really willing to go with this? Or is this the best thing we've ever done, or is this just stupid, you know?
Also, you've been a part of another project which I liked a lot called Actor. Care to comment on that?
We finished another album.
Unreal.
Yeah, Actor is a studio project. It's myself and two guys from Finland who are in a band called Circle. They're probably going on 30 years now, close. Very progressive band.
How would you describe it? Because I recall playing Actor to a friend of mine, and he thought it was some unreleased Blue Oyster Cult material, which is a great compliment, by the way.
Very much. And we've gotten that a few times. I understand, but I don't know that I totally agree with the comparison. It is a big compliment. Musically, it's hard for me to describe because I don't listen to music that sounds like that a whole lot. Like, I have my influences that I try to draw on for Actor, but the songs come to me, they already have rhythm guitar and drums. So kind of like the foundation and the walls are already there. You know, I'm kind of just adding the color with my vocals and my bass. And I just try to make the songs kick ass. I'm not thinking of any particular influences or inspirations necessarily when I'm working on that stuff. I just want the songs to be catchy and interesting lyrically. Those guys are the wizards as far as Actor goes. I'm just the help.
Finally, what's next for High Spirits and any other projects that you're gonna unleash upon us?
This year I started releasing music just as Professor Black, as myself. It's not all solo albums. Some of it's solo projects, but I have help. We did an EP earlier this year called You Bastard, and in October we have 3 full-length albums coming out all on the same day, all different styles musically. And from there, I mean, we're going to kind of see what the reaction is to the solo albums before we make any real ambitious plans for, Professor Black as a live act or whatever. We've done a few shows that have gone well, but I think the response to the albums will kind of dictate how busy we try to be with that. And then next year, I'd like to do another High Spirits record. I don't know that I'd be able to finish one next year, but I'll certainly be able to start. And in the meantime, we're working on a new Pharaoh album too. So lots going on. Wish there was more time to say yes to more things, but doing our best.
Now, of all projects that you have done, is it fair to say that High Spirits caught you off guard the most?
Yes, because I'd spent so many years, working very hard and really trying to get out there with the other bands and just not, we got plenty of recognition and we sold plenty of CDs and did some cool tours, but there was never You know, there was never that kind of really sudden, loud response like there was when another night came out. I guess the closest thing when we released an album with Dawnbringer called Nucleus, which was a bit of a surprise hit, but that was more confusing than anything. Dawnbringer had been so unpopular for so many years that I thought I had done something. I thought I had screwed something up when we finally made an album that people liked. I was like, oops.
Thank you.
Thank you.